Hi, everybody. I am Sue Landay, President of Trainers Warehouse, and welcome to Show and Share, where we're talking about everything regarding participation and encouraging participation in your training sessions. Everything from setting the tone at the get-go to dealing with challenging participants, understanding goals of participation, and so forth. So, as I've said in the past, this is an open conversation. I hope to make this as valuable to all of you as possible. So, feel free to show your faces, unmute, and we can get started. So, when we do these, I feel like I am in no way the one who has all of the answers. I feel like I have a ton of really skilled trainers and professionals on in these sessions, and really kind of hope to draw out your experiences and suggestions so that we can learn from one another. So I put out the question in the chat originally: what are some of your big participation challenges? And Chelsea shared one idea, and maybe that's where we start, and then we see where the conversation takes us. And am I saying your name correctly, or am I embarrassing myself?
Yep. Nope, you are totally right. Yep. Just spelled different.
Thank you. Okay, so Chelsea's, one of her challenges is having people with different kinds of experiences all staying engaged. And let me ask a couple of questions so that we can kind of be more helpful.
Mhm.
At what are you thinking of engagement? Because I always think of this question in terms of like, what's my goal? At what part of the training am I looking for engagement? Is it, kind of right at the beginning? Is it during the context of a presentation? Is it afterwards? Tell a little bit more about what you're trying to achieve and kind of what you're seeing, what the challenge is, if you don't mind.
Yeah, no problem. So I work at a financial institution and I train new employees coming in. So tellers, and some people come from life experiences, like I mentioned. Maybe I've had a mortgage before, or I have someone that's starting that's 18 years old that's never had a mortgage before, just as an example, or even a car loan. So the engagement level can fluctuate depending on their life experiences. So some people who have had all these and know the definitions and the terms just kind of have to hang back and wait while I explain to those that have never even touched that product or service, or even been able to explain it to someone else what those products and services are. So how to keep them both engaged when they can vary so much in what they've experienced.
Right. And their knowledge of the topic already.
Correct. Yes, exactly.
And how many people are you typically training at once?
It can vary anywhere from 2 to 10 every 3 weeks.
Okay. All right. Anybody wanted to jump in? Have a few ideas, but want to ask all of you before I start blabbering. Feel free to take yourselves off mute or show your faces, whatever you like.
Yeah, hi everyone, and good day. I just want to add a little bit on my experience. Chelsea, right? Sorry.
Yes. Don't be sorry. You got it.
Yeah, so my experiences with either small groups and large groups, and obviously with different types of people, and obviously age as well has been a concern for me. But recently, I don't know if this is the right time to talk about this, Sue, is I learned something from one of the forums that I attended. To be honest, I don't know if it was here with Trainers Warehouse or somewhere else, where there was just to get some engagement and participation, obviously just set the stage and set people's nerves down a little bit. There was a game that I played, and this was for a longer training over 4 to 5 days. and it was called bingo. I don't know if you guys have come across this or heard of it, where you fold the
Go
paper
ahead.
in half and in quarters and then in eighths, and then you have the agenda. And then
Oh.
so that for me was just
Keep going. Keep explaining that. I'm not familiar with that. So you
yeah,
fold the
so
paper. Give us a
let
good.
me just get a piece of paper out. So
Okay.
you fold your piece of paper in half, and then again in half, and then again in half. So you get like 8 squares.
Okay.
And then you have your agenda either on the board or printed out. So in my 4 or 5 day training, I had like 30 different topics, and it was more of a customer service thing.
Mhm.
And then people would choose what would most interest them on that 30 categories of things that I'm training. But then when I present, it will not be in that order. So it'll not be 1, 2, 3, 4. So it will be, maybe it'll start off with 1, and then I'll jump to, let's say, 12, and then 5. And then what they would do is they would have their little squares, and they would have already noted down their numbers, what interests them the most. And they would have 8 numbers. So over the 4 or 5 days, they would always be awake. And every time I change subject, it'll come on the screen, and then you'll see everybody just grabbing their paper and go. So for me, that was one way just to keep everybody engaged and motivated and focused on what I was trying to teach, and also very light.
I love that too.
I loved it too. I've done it twice now. It's amazing.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Love that idea and haven't heard it before, so I love it even more.
Yeah, it's
One thing
excellent too.
that I was thinking about, and I'd love everybody else's impressions of this, but when you were first speaking, I was thinking, I wonder if you had smaller groups, so like people who are really who are very skilled in the topic and may have experiences that the others don't. Could you put them at a table with some of these other folks? So instead of you being the one to do some of that training, they could share their knowledge or help people go a little bit deeper? Would that kind of work, or maybe no?
It could. So we are in like a training lab. So they could sit at the same lab section because each participant has their own computer. But yeah, I could do that. I like that.
Because that kind of gets people, thinking at different levels and feeling like their expertise matters. It reinforces the learning for them. If it's something that they already know. I mean, the other thing is possibly breaking into smaller groups so that you have the folks who are newer, who have less, less experience with the topic. They can sort of have a little bit of a different curriculum within that time. Sharon, it looks like you raised your hand. If I'm reading this correctly, do you more to input as well?
Yes, thank you. I was thinking the same thing that you were about trying to group them or parent share, whatever, so that they felt like their experience mattered. But sometimes I feel when I do that, it's hard to control those who are very self-absorbed and very proud of their experience. So maybe you put a time limit on it, or something that I've used too is just to pass out the Post-it notes and let them add their ideas on the Post-it notes, and then everybody can go around and maybe put them on flip charts on around the wall, around on the walls and such, so that you got a control. So this is a great idea. Give me if you can just explain this in 2 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever, and maybe even have a prize for those that do it under the 2 minutes or whatever, so that you really have control of your time.
I love that. I'm also, let's stick with this topic of dealing with people who are kind of too talky. I've heard, yeah, I like the time limits. I've also heard people say that they will occasionally discipline themselves to ask for input from two other speakers before they go back to that person. So I think that is kind of interesting also. And I should probably take that advice right now. So two other people who have ideas, either about Chelsea's original question or kind of controlling talkers that are too prone to jump in.
That's that's actually a parliamentary procedure. For anybody who's into that no one gets to speak a second time unless everybody else gets to speak their first time. So we could use that too.
Excellent. Any other tips around that, those ideas?
We've actually heard of people in something unrelated to this, but I guess sort of related, in where if somebody has spoken, say everyone's standing, that person sits down, so that everyone knows that, okay, don't have that person answer again. But it could be some sort of other indicator like that.
Mm-hmm. We've also, I'm going to just do a screen share because this might also be some fodder for some ideas. We've put together some other tools, which it's a little bit different from kind of the facilitation techniques that we're talking about. Facilitation techniques such as, how you organize people, or pairing and sharing, or two people talk before speaking again. But some of the tools that we have found to spark conversation or check understanding, we kind of put this infographic together and have had in our show and shares actually a lot of people demonstrating some of these tools. So some that come to mind just in this top quadrant include, thumb balls have specific question prompts. So I'm trying to kind of gear this away from like introductions and icebreakers and more towards the content of what you're trying to teach. So one of the things that I really like are these photo decks where people pick an image, a photographic image or a drawing, and they have to use that to relate that to the topic. Either something that they're learning, a question that they have about it, something about their experience that relates to the image that they think would be helpful. I mean, you can kind of formulate those questions in any manner to get to the topic that you're trying to teach, but it allows people to kind of think about what they're learning in a new way and relate it in something that's just sort of particular to them and to their experience. And that can be another way to open things up. In terms of like the just having fun, we've seen people using prize wheels, scratch tickets. So again, if you have the same people participating, maybe you get people, you give out lottery tickets or some, not actual lottery tickets, but like just like those tear off tickets, to try to encourage them to participate and give them a little carrot and little enticement to do that. So there's a few ideas there. Other questions specifically about that, or other participation challenges that you'd like to discuss with the group?
If I may, so just to go back to the previous slide that you had there.
Oh, sure.
When you were talking about giving away prizes and stuff, I have maybe you guys have done this also. It's the engagement and the participation part where you give out prizes. So I learned this from a German guy when we were doing training together, and he was doing like engagement dollars where people would either participate by answering a question or asking questions or saying a statement which was a good or something great and positive, and then that person would get rewarded with with the engagement dollars, similar to your lottery ticket. And then at the end of the training, whether it was a short 1 or 2 day training, then you'd have a like a prize for the person with the highest engagement dollars, 1 or 2 top prizes. That also kept people motivated and engaged to keep learning, right? And also keep participating. I think that was pretty powerful for me also.
So,
Don't know if you guys have tried that.
Terry, what did you use for your engagement dollars?
I printed them myself. I just made them up, with my company logo and on stock paper. So just in my company advertising and stuff, saying what I do and things. So there was 20, 10s and 5s. So it was pretty hectic. Every day people will say, "So don't forget to," and they call me sir, even though they're adults. It was pretty interesting. And then they would just collect that, and over time, then at the end of the 1 day or 2 day sessions, they would claim a prize, and usually it was something small like a bottle of wine that got pretty, but people don't know what it was, right? So they don't know what they're working to, what prize they're gonna get. So just little gadgets, really, nothing hectic.
Nothing major. Yeah. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Chelsea, you're saying check out Mentimeter for participation ideas. Are there specific? Tell me more, if you don't mind.
That wasn't Chelsea, that was Virginia.
Oh, you're saying Chelsea. Okay, sorry. Yes.
So yeah, Mentimeter.com. It's kind of like an electronic. You can get in there and set up like different questions. It has a a Wheel of Fortune type thing, but I use it whenever I want to ask like general, like if you're doing like leadership type questions, who was the most significant leader in your life? And then they can all sign in from their phone, and every person gets to participate, and their answers show up on the screen that you're that you're presenting from. So it's a great tool. It's a great way to do reviews of topics from the day before, etc.
So, because you with the survey and poll, you're really letting every person participate.
That's right. And you don't have to, worry about printing anything. I mean, and everybody's phone crazy nowadays anyway. So, and it also keeps those people who tend to want to answer every question, as you guys were mentioning earlier. Every single person in the room has a voice. So,
which also reminds me that although we sell a ton of game show buzzers to kind of gamify a lot of learning, we also find that we sell tons of, hold on, wait for it, answer boards that are dry erase that you can have everybody write their answer in, it's not connected to a device. And this also, reminds me of the advice that I've gotten about just remembering to give people time, waiting time to think, so that, you're not just calling on the first people to answer all the time, because some people need more time to process and to formulate responses. Sharon, would you mind, would you mind unmuting to share your other idea that you just wrote about?
Of course. It's, just if you're asking for questions or it's like a different kind of popcorn. But when you want to limit the time and you or control your time, they can only speak for as long as they can breathe. So that's the limit of what they can say. And it's it can be used as a closer. It can be used in at the beginning, at the middle, whatever. But it sometimes becomes really funny when they run out of steam.
So how do you set that? You call it popcorn?
I just call it one breath.
Okay, so how do you set that up? Like, what kind of question might you put out there that this would work for?
Well, just like we're talking today. So what is your feedback on the ways to engage? And but you can only speak for as long as you can during one breath, and so you see what you get.
That's fun. Love that.
Yeah, I think that's very nice, Sharon. I like that. I'm going to start using it as an intro.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially when you're having people introduce themselves, they can get a little lengthy.
Yeah, life stories come out.
How do you all deal with like shy participants? And here I'm trying to take my own advice and waiting.
Um, for me, guys, I mean, when I always start my training, I mean, I always have some housekeeping notes. The fire safety, bathroom, we're all adults, and then this is a safe and inclusive environment. So just setting a stage, I think, is important. And especially when we have supervisors or managers in the room, then the junior guys are a little bit more quiet, and even more so for the shy people. So just bringing everybody on the same level and calling everybody by their first names, Carol, Lynn, James, getting them to write their names down. It's not Miss Landay and Miss Metcalf and so on. So we're all on the same level. We're all here to learn together. So that's what I try to do to get the shy ones feel more part of the bigger group, and the ones that have more experience, who's been there 20, 30 years, as opposed to 1 year or less.
Mm.
Don't know if that works for everybody.
Mm-hmm. And how about kind of breaking people up into smaller groups so that they can share within their table, or just share within, even with pairing. Sharon, it may have been you who talked about, doing a pair and share, and just giving people a smaller group within which to work, I think can also help.
Well, I don't want to talk too much, but I think also when you do that, instead of allowing them to talk about their ideas or their feedback, let the other person, if you're in parent share or in a table group, let them share that other person's ideas that maybe is not quite as confident in what they're speaking out loud. So their ideas are heard, and it gives them more validity and maybe gives them confidence.
And interesting, if I'm understanding right, when they're sharing someone else's ideas, they may not feel like they're revealing themselves so much, which is really,
it's a little bit safer.
it feels safer. Yeah. Yep. Oh, Chelsea, tell us about the toilet paper idea.
So we had to quit this during 2020 since it was hard to find toilet paper, but
And that's funny in and of itself.
Yes. Yeah. So we just have like a really cheap roll of toilet paper, and I don't say a whole lot at the beginning. I just say, okay, take what you think you're going to need for the next 2 days, pass it down. And so people they're like, oh gosh, where's she going with this? So some start wrapping, and then some take a few. But then I say, okay, for each square that you took, now tell me something about yourself. So one can be your name, one can be your position. How many kids do you have? What sports do you like? But some get really creative. Like I like pizza, I have a cat. So, but it's just kind of fun. For those that take the really long piece, though, I'm like, you really don't need to share that much. But
We really don't want to hear that much.
yeah, it could get long, but it's just a fun way to kind of break the ice and get creative with it.
Really fun.
Yeah.
Really fun. Other favorite participation techniques that you all have tried? Benita, Lynn, James? Anyone else? Do you guys know what this is? Yeah, I'm only seeing a lot of you don't have your videos up, but the thumb balls that in addition to having pre-printed conversation starters like, what do you like to read? What's your perfect day look like? Your claim to fame, which would be good, like, get to know each other. We also have, or you could create on, your own ball prompts about your topic. And, whether, if you're at a bank and you're, talking about how, what difficult questions might come up to your tellers, like maybe you type in, how do you respond to this question? And then it kind of becomes the basis for a role play or something like that. You can toss it to each other and have kind of an organic conversation in that way based on, whatever prompts that you might put on a ball of that sort. So you don't have to be just linked to whatever we might have come up with. But those have continued. We get just like rave reviews about using those for participation and to get people talking. And actually, with respect to that, we had an interesting conversation a few weeks ago about not, if someone gets that ball and doesn't want to answer that prompt, inviting them because they're shy or because they're young, because they don't know what answer is, they want to share, being okay with letting them know that it's okay to just pick any prompt, just to kind of get them to start to open up and feel more comfortable sharing. So that was another tip that I loved, that came about a few weeks ago.
Sue, can I ask you a question?
Yeah, of course.
That ball, I don't have any of those balls that you're holding there. Are they inflatable or are they like a soft thing?
It's like it's squishy.
Okay.
It's like filled with, foam or some sort of fiber filling.
All right.
So nobody's going to get hurt. And they're about 6 inches. So it's, I don't know, it's kind of, it
Yeah.
looks bigger when you put it near the count.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Yeah.
Very good. No, I was just thinking because I know you had that set of like 7 balls or something.
Yeah.
For like 119. I can't remember what it was, but I was thinking of maybe getting some and having it shipped, to Seychelles. But shipping for me sometimes is a little bit costly. That's why I hesitate.
Yeah, and when we send those overseas, we try to kind of pack them into as small a box as we can so that it's
All right.
to try to minimize, but you are also sending a lot of air. So it's a light package, but it might be a little bit bigger.
Yeah, sure. No, I mean for me, I mean I did buy an item from Trainer's Warehouse, and that was the road to there.
Yeah.
And I don't know if I spoke to you, and I also printed my own so that I could put it up on the board, so that was very handy, but that's for other projects.
So someone during our call today also talked about sticky notes and Post-it notes. And we have seen these, and I wrote your road to there comment reminded me of this because I think within that, there are sticky notes for where am I now? Where do I want to go? What are the obstacles along the way? And we've seen people, and we have created different sets of sticky notes, whether it's the rose, the bud, the thorn, like, what's the opportunity? What's the what's going to hold you back, or what now what have I learned? Why does it matter? What am I going to do with that? We've had sticky notes for start, stop, continue, change. What do I want to start doing? How am I going to change what I'm doing? And so forth. But using those sticky notes, what's so kind of robust about those experiences is that people really can take their own time, write their own thoughts. It's individual. And then you post them to a board. And then as the facilitator, you can go up to those boards. You can kind of see what the themes are. What are people, what are the commonalities of people's questions or experiences or thoughts? And, what are the differences? Where are the outliers? Where do problems lie? Where should we be focusing our time? And, I'm just thinking of your initial question, Chelsea, also of like people who may have a lot more experience, excuse me, but maybe there are also holes in what they know. So what are the things that they're hoping to learn? Where do they see some of the opportunities for growth? And always asking, kind of being in touch with what people hope to get out of a session, what their thinking is in any given moment. But having people be able to write thoughts, post them without, especially those shy learners, bringing things all together, without necessarily having to be vocal that something was, that was them. You can kind of gauge the group as a whole. So I still love those tools, whether you get something that's pre-imprinted or you just get a bunch of different colored Post-its and assign your own meanings to the different colors. Could go either way.
Yeah.
Great tips. Other tips or questions, anything you'd like to ask one another? I know that we're coming up on our half hour. I know these are kind of quick in and out, but would like to give you opportunities either to ask me any other questions or to touch base with one another with any other questions you might have. Thank you all for coming, and have a great rest of your day.